Welcome to the Money Maven Project podcast. If you're here to learn how to obtain freedom over your time and money through real estate investing, you're in the right place. Create the life you want by living with intention and becoming a maven in mindset, money, and real estate. Now, here's your host, Justin Monk.
Hey, thank you very much. This is Justin with the Money Maven Project. I just want to say how stoked I am. This is kind of a little celebration of our 50th episode. So we're putting together a bunch of clips from all the episodes we've done over the last year, 50 episodes in total. It's been an absolute awesome journey. I have met some really awesome people. I have learned a lot, and we have shared a lot of really awesome ideas as far as real estate investing. But most importantly, I think it's the ideas that we've shared around the mindset of success and living a full life and what it takes to do so. It's just been absolutely awesome. I've met some awesome people. I can't name them all, and I don't want to name my favorites, but there have been some absolute life-changing conversations that I've had with these guests. So I appreciate you following along and supporting our journey here. If you would, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, let us know what you like about it, and maybe even some things that you would wish we would improve or do differently. So again, thank you. This is a celebration of the 50 episodes that we've done so far. Thanks for following along. And here's to a bunch more episodes coming down the road here.
What it boils down to is going back to looking yourself in the mirror. Because if you're saying stuff like that, I don't know people with money, or I don't want to talk to my family. What you're really saying is I don't believe in myself.
Yeah.
That's what you're really saying. And you got, if you're willing to own that and look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm not sure if I'm good enough to convince my family to invest with me, or to convince my friends to invest with me, or to start looking at hustling, then at least you can start from there.
Yeah.
You don't believe in yourself. Great. Listen to more of Justin's podcast. That's all about mindset. Go to Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Go read some great books and find that courage that's within all of us. Yeah. But if you acknowledge that it's not there, then that looking yourself in the mirror moment can take you to the next level. I had to have that moment myself years ago.
Yeah. Fear isn't even real unless it's a grizzly bear. When you're chased by a grizzly bear, you'll know that fear is real. Because if you don't run fast enough or downhill, you're dead. But fear sitting on top of that mountain, looking down, fear of wondering what it's going to be like to quit your job and figure things out, that fear is not real. It's all
used to the word no. You're going to hear the word no. You heard the word no. Yeah. What sets people apart is what they do with the word no. It's kind of, to a certain degree, it's about sales. And if you have some sales experience and you can turn a no into a yes, and you can handle these objections and overcome these objections and turn that around, that's the key right there. Learn how to overcome the objections, and you're only going to do that by hearing the word no.
What do you think separates for those that succeed in real estate or whatever journey they're on from those that struggle and give up, fail?
Yeah, man, it's just grit. It's grit and hustle. I mean, you gotta really go after with a commitment to work through all the problems, because there's going to be a lot of problems. There's going to be a whole lot of problems, a whole lot of things go wrong. And you just got to be willing to persevere through it and take each one that comes with a smile on your face and say, this is just part of it. I couldn't even begin to tell you the number of things that have gone wrong. Like, it's unbelievable. But it's part of it, man. And the return on investment we're getting is ridiculous, you know? So, but it's because we put up with a lot of ridiculous problems.
How you talk, I really don't care. I don't care if you work out. I don't care if you don't work out. I don't care if you hang out with all ballers. The conversations that are going on in your head are destroying you. It is, if you are having these negative conversations, the first person that needs to believe in yourself is yourself. As Cat Williams would say, it's called self-esteem. It's yourself. Because I'm telling you, if you ask anybody that's down or in a bad place, it is the negative conversation they're having in their head. Because somebody said something very true the other day. We would never, ever speak to anybody the way we speak to her.
Successful people do the things unsuccessful people don't like to do. So literally, as I'm swimming laps, when I'm questioning why the hell am I doing this, I would repeat over and over in my head, successful people do the things that unsuccessful people do the things unsuccessful people don't like to do. And, so many of us, it could be as simple as getting up in the morning and hitting snooze. Now, here's the thing on just this small little thing that seems very small. If you hit snooze and you give yourself 9 more minutes, or you hit it a few more times and you give yourself 27 minutes or whatever it is, we sleep in 90-minute cycles. So the reason why you feel groggy the rest of the day is you just started a new sleep cycle and you're not giving yourself the full 90 minutes. So that's one thing that people can easily implement.
That's a sales thing. Like, you're going to have to understand a sales cycle. You're going to have to understand, identifying, dominant motives that would actually move that person. You need to be able to present yourself. You need to be able to, negotiate a deal. You need to be able to close on that deal.
Yep.
You'd need to be able to actually see a deal through, which means you would need to be able to follow up. You would need to know that game. So learning the sales game to me has been one of the most important things. I see this as probably it's the most important education I think that I've had on anything, because I just know the value of what it's going to give me moving forward, no matter what I do. And I would just encourage all the listeners too, pick up the skill set.
I try to give a tip real quick. If you're like a newer investor and you're trying to find deals quick and you're wanting to flip deals specifically, I would get on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I would search hashtags of your local cities and flipping, like real estate investing. Like, search those and try to friend everyone that says that they're a wholesaler, ask to be put on their list.
You're just saying analysis paralysis. I mean, so many people that we mentor and coach, they just get so caught up in that. Like, well, what should my business card say? I'm like, I don't even have a business card. You don't need a business, don't worry about that. Just talk to someone. So I tell people, before I call you tomorrow, I want you to have called 5 people. Well, what do I say? Ask them if they want to sell their house. What do I say next? Who cares? I mean, you don't have to know everything. You really don't. Yeah. All you have to be good at is talking to someone, just saying, hey, I want to solve a problem. So the more problems you can solve, the better you're going to be in any niche within real estate, whether that's wholesaling or buying rentals, whatever you want to do. You just have to look at it from a problem-solving perspective.
I started doing now, I write everything down. I write every day, like on Sunday, every day I write what's my goals for that day or that week. And because when I first quit, I tell you, I was scared. I started applying for jobs like, I don't know if I've made the right decision. So, it took time for me to actually start, getting the confidence to know, like, oh no, the stuff that I'm reading these books, they actually work. Like, write your goals down, write them down. Mm-hmm. It works. And then when you accomplish your goal, don't scratch it out. Put a check mark, success, because you accomplish that. Because a lot of times you go through the whole day, like today I had maybe an inspection, and the inspection, it didn't go too good. I'm selling the property, they marking up all these things. Yeah. But guess what? Yeah, that didn't go good, but the 7 other things that I did, I accomplished.
My thing was just comparison. I was just comparing myself to everybody. I'm behind. My bank account's not as big as a lot of my friends. I don't have the titles that a lot of my friends have, and it was just wearing on me, just dragging me down, and I couldn't figure out why that was. And then I finally discovered that the why behind why I was doing what I was doing was completely off kilter. It was completely off base from what I truly wanted in life. I did this Dream Adventurously project where I asked myself 10 questions, things like, where do you want to live, when I'm 60? Who do I want to be with? What does my day-to-day look like? All of it was surrounded by money. It was all motivated. I want to have money so I can do these things. And I got to this realization that money's going to fail me if I make it, my idol. If that's all I'm going after, it's going to fail me all the time.
Craigslist every single night. So while I was working this minimum wage job, had young kids at home, or one young son at home at the time, I would get online every single night and I would just scour Craigslist, seller financing, owner terms, as is, just all these terms, and things would pop up. A lot of them were junk. A lot of them were things that I didn't pursue. but I would call the owners and have these conversations. And I got really comfortable talking to these owners, and I got really comfortable looking at these deals and seeing what was out there until finally, so I really went through that process. And then I came across 2 duplexes that they were offering seller financing on, and I'm running the numbers on this thing. And because I had looked at so many other deals that didn't pencil, I knew this did. And so like, that's something I tell people today that say, hey, we're going to sit on the sidelines until, you know, the market shifts. I'm like, no, go and put in the work now, analyze and go through the process.
People listening are going to turn around and go, oh, I could never do that. Well, you know, the second you say you could never do it, you're right.
Yeah.
Because you've just determined there's the line, I can't do that. Okay. But you know what happens when you start doing what everyone thinks is ridiculous? Your level of what you go for increases to a new basic, a new bottom line, a new level.
Yeah.
And then nothing isn't achievable. Nothing cannot be achieved and be gained. And so you become empowered. And I go into my coaching clients to get them out of the way of their growth. And then I get them to, as I say, go for stupid. Go for what someone is going to ridicule you. I want you to be the next Elon Musk sat in a bar going, right, boys, I'm going to invent civilian space industry.
I don't think I've had one person on my podcast, and we're up almost to 250 episodes, not one that told me when I asked the question about, similar to your question about morning routine, that said to me, yeah, I don't have one. That doesn't exist. I don't need that. Not one. And then take it a step further. David Nurse was on my show recently, and he's going to speak at our next event. He trains high performance trainer for NBA players. Like, that's the highest mental game there is. These are kids coming out of, right? He adds to that. He was stressing to me the importance of ending the night and then having the good morning routine, because if you end your night shitty, then you're going to have a tough time starting that morning routine. So it's like a double whammy. Ending it properly, quick routine, could take seconds or minutes, and then starting it properly. But the morning routine I've always asked guests about, and they go, and they outline it. So I think that's a huge one.
There are groupings of people where they are on their own journey, and based off of where they are on their own journey, there are patterns of what their hurdles are. So people who have yet to get started, they can all have these little whatever. I don't have access to capital. I don't know construction. Those are all like, I guess, details as to why they aren't getting started. But the mindset is that there is the fear of changing whatever trajectory they're currently on. I see that as the underlying issue is the fear of change, the fear of the unknown.
For everything, standard operating procedures for literally everything. And so it's just ingrained in me. You do something once, you write down how you do it. There's your checklist system. You file it away and you keep adding to the system as lessons learned. And that's your easiest way to hire on and expedite your growth, is because after you've done it once and you have your checklist, there's your checklist to hand someone else and have them do it for you. So documentation for sure. And then a lot of people have trouble leveraging or letting go or outsourcing things. I have almost zero issue saying, I'm not the best person for this job. You can do it better, and so I'm really good at like delegating. But with that, it's delegate, but verify. Like, I'll send something, and I'm really big on reminders. So like, I'll send an email, and I never trust that the thing that I'm requesting is going to happen ever. So you send the email and you go 3 days, you set a reminder to check in. Hey, where are we at with this?
So another one would be called essentially a rent to own or a lease option. Very similar, slight differences, but nonetheless, you can come in, and this is actually very, very common in mobile home parks. Now, we did this with other properties, but this is very common in mobile home parks. It's where you own the actual home. Then the person who wants to buy it comes in as a tenant, but they pay you a non-refundable security deposit saying, hey, I plan on buying this over the course of 5 years. They continue to pay monthly payments on it until they pay it off. The beautiful piece about that is the house itself may be worth $50,000, but because that individual never had to go get a loan or had bad credit, you can charge them $65,000. So now you've made more money over the course of time. And by doing seller finance, you remove yourself of all liability to the house. So there's no more maintenance. There's no more CapEx. It's all gone. You pass it over.
That most misalignments people have is around money. That's the big one, right? And I can show you how we address it in a second. But you have a person who wants to make a lot of money, or they want to replace their day job or create more wealth. But their past experience about money, the way they feel about money is negative.
Yeah.
You know, if I say rich people are blank, you know, what word pops up? Right? Yeah. Do you say they're loving, kind people? No, we're socially conditioned to think rich people are greedy, right? And then I actually did a call in my Mindset Academy the other day. I was like, okay, well, if you want more money, we don't make money, right? Do you have a printing press? I don't. The way we get money is from other people, right? All money comes from someone else. So if you want to make more money, you have to receive more money. And are you willing to receive more money? And you say that, and half the people that hear that go, oh, well, I'm not worthy, and all this other stuff goes. So you'll have the focus and dedication and commitment towards the target, but part of their mindset is misaligned so that they are not worthy or not aligned with actually receiving the results. So it'll never happen.
Yeah.
But that to me is so powerful. I feel like people have a constant struggle in their life to overcome negativity, self-doubt, the push to move forward and be a better person, take action, not let your past life dictate your future. You know, it needs constant reminding. It's not like you can just read a book or listen to some guy's podcast or whatever, and then you're cured. Now you no longer tell yourself negative thoughts, and now you've got all this wisdom and you're just going to live by the universe. I mean, it doesn't really work that way. It takes that every day, for me anyways, constant reminders. And I need to read that stuff all the time to remember, because it's hard. Their old habits bring you down.
Yeah.
And your old habits keep you in the grind. And you have to read, in my opinion, those sorts of mind books to get out of the fog and see yourself as a higher sort of being.
One is like educate yourself with what like your preferred method of educating, whether it's podcasts, whether it's books. Like Bigger Pockets has a bunch of books on legitimately everything. And they break it down to such like a digestible level. That, and then also building yourself a community of other investors, because I think that it's not really the normal mindset for someone to go about saying, I'm going to go invest in real estate. Maybe it's a little bit normal these days with Bigger Pockets, but like I even have friends and family who think I'm absolutely crazy. And if I didn't surround myself with investors and like even like thousands of investors on Instagram, I think that my perspective on scaling and risk and problems that come up day to day would be so different. And with the support of them, like I think that I'm exactly where I should be. I'm doing it right. Like I'm not second guessing my decisions based on what friends and family.
Don't tell everyone. It's the best thing because we fish in the same pond. It's awesome. We fish in some of the same ponds as the wholesalers and the flippers and realtors, and we just have different options. So we're creating we're solving different challenges. And I really do think that this is becoming a very progressive niche, because with everything that's happened with COVID, there's so many people right now that either number one have a property in which they're dealing with certain scenarios such as default or tax liens, and they have so much equity in their property, these sellers, but the only way that they can actually continue to have that equity is if somebody comes in and catches up their arrears or their default or their tax liens, or if not, they're going to lose everything. So we've been able to help people through this process.
I think a lot of your people who have been in sales have heard all of these probably before, but the no's, just constantly getting no's. I know from myself, I've gotten numerous callbacks from my marketing campaigns, and not one deal has closed because of some reason or another. And it's very disheartening and I know you can probably relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I think people need to realize that more and kind of accept that and realize that that doesn't mean it's the end. I mean, we've had I do success calls with people who do deals with Deal Machine, and I can't tell you how many times I grinded for 6 months and I got a deal. And because they were consistent, and we kind of talked about that before, it's the consistency. Then it was like tenfold. The phones
has to be perfect. And I've really spent several years deprogramming from all of the years of social conditioning I went through, thinking I'm not going to go for it unless I can make sure that it's going to be perfect. And so I'm actually working with my own daughter who's, I'm like, hey, I'd rather you take a risk and fall flat on your face and then learn from it and go from there.
Yeah.
So that's another big thing, is just believing in yourself enough to go out and say, I'm ready to, what's the saying, to suck at something.
You have to understand that transformation takes time. And so there's a process that takes place. The transformational process, it includes all of these stages. And, one of these stages is just grieving the life you thought you were headed for. Right. And so there's all this, I don't know, I think you really just have to be open about what your certain situation is, and also to just give yourself grace to get through the transformation, because it's just not an overnight process.
Yeah. I think it's unhealthy to not be okay with it taking some time, and not being patient with the process of life developing you into who you should become. And so I think that I think it can be it can be a dark place if you're so impatient with, where you're trying to get to, that you just beat yourself up all the time, and you're just banging on this thing. You're just grinding at whatever you're trying to accomplish. We're so good at over scheduling ourselves and just booking ourselves so solid with our job and other activities outside of that, maybe taking care of family, whatever, that we just never have the minute to think about it. And so by default, society plugs the answer in for us, and then we just go with it. And I think that's an absolute shame, because there's so much. I mean, if everybody truly lived up to what they really wanted to accomplish and what they really desired, and thought bigger, just like you showed us here, they actually wouldn't limit themselves on what they dreamed to do. Just imagine how much better of a world we would live in. Like just that, like if that's the only thing that happened from people thinking and having the right mindset, it would change the world. Like, and that to me is a super profound thing. And that's why I spend so much time focusing.
What happens if the Airbnb doesn't make the money that you thought it was going to make? Or what happens if they change the ordinance halfway through your lease? Well, they both have the same solution, right? It's important that you rent these properties for fair market rent. So if they change the ordinance 6 months into the lease, or if it really wasn't making money, you simply put a long-term tenant in there for the remainder of the lease, break even for the remainder of the lease, collect your deposit, and walk away. And I've experienced that one time out of like 20 total Airbnbs we launched. And it wasn't even a bad situation at all, because you're not losing money. You're paying what anybody else would. So you have permission.
A lot of investors are pointed in that direction now.
Yeah.
So some of the more old school ways of like, hey, I'm going to go back to, door knocking. And that, you just eliminated all the noise of their mailbox and their voicemail. And now you're back on their step, and they're, getting that contact point. And so, anything that you can do to get in front of them. And then, I think standing out from your competition's more than just that. It's also, are you a genuine? Are you there to help? Do you call people back when you say you're going to call them back? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Are you relatable? Can you build rapport? Do they like you? There's like all these intangible things that really build up to be like, hey, I had a couple offers on the table, some were higher, but I'm going with your company because I really like, the way that you did XYZ.
Because they just did the 2020 Census Bureau information just rolled out, and they let us know that actually in the House of Representatives, California and New York both lost seats. I think there was 7 states that lost seats where the population has declined enough where they actually lost seats in the House. And we saw 2 get added to Texas. I think we saw 1 get added to Tennessee. So you're seeing the migration patterns. And of course, wherever people are going to, that's where there's going to be a demand for real estate. Yeah. So those are ones that I feel really confident in. And I've heard the number one is Tennessee. And I think number two is Texas. So those are markets that I'm really interested in right now too, because that might.
As they're getting started in the real estate world.
Definitely plug into, the meetup groups, the podcasts. Find somebody that you can connect with, whether, like you said, we have social media at our fingertips. Not everybody's going to give away their time and knowledge for free, but if you can connect with people, whether it is through social media or on a local level, and you can say, hey, how can I help you? And it's helping you accomplish your goals by doing that, let's bring a deal and do a deal together type thing or whatever. Like, find people that are
mine like last week too, and somebody was like, I think I'm gonna wait to buy my first rental property, not house, my first rental property, because I'm worried about inflation and blah blah blah. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's an argument for both sides of the coin. Like, there's an argument to wait. There's also an argument right now. I always recommend buying now. What's the best day to buy real estate is yesterday. Like, there couldn't be a better time to buy it, and it doesn't matter when, especially if you're buying like sub $100,000 or $200,000 properties, like the cheapest houses in America with affordable rents that are like sub $2,000 in economies that are doing well and not like a boom and bust city or a small little town in the middle of nowhere with 10,000 people. I mean, like, there's so many, like, you're saved in so many ways. Like,
there are thousands and thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people across the US doing exactly what you think you can't do.
Yeah.
And they are no different than you. I started doing this when I was 21 years old. I come from a blue collar family. I grew up in a mobile home park. First one in my family to ever go to college, paid my way through myself. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah. Well, it's so easy. Like, nowadays, it's so easy to see that other people are doing it from books. I mean, books have kind of always been around, but now you've got social media, you've got podcasts. For me, the Bigger Pockets podcast was a huge, I learned a lot there, but what I really got out of those kinds of podcasts was, hey, this guy can do it or this girl can do it, so can I. And so day to day, like, as I consumed that content, I was just encouraged that to keep pushing, to keep learning, to keep figuring it out, because if they
tirade for about 5 minutes telling me I don't want a job, I don't want to be told what to do, I don't want a 9 to 5, I don't want to worry about money, and I'll listen to them for about 5 minutes. And when they're done, I'll say, okay, my question was, what do you want? You went on a 5-minute tirade telling me what you don't want. Let's try that again. And a lot of times they'll think and they'll sit there and they'll go, you know what? I don't know what I want. I know what I don't want. And basically you're running away from what you don't want. You're running away from your fears. You're running away from all the things you don't want. But when that's all you're thinking about, guess what happens? You get exactly what you don't want because that's your focus. It's like driving down the road and you see a rock and you stare at that rock, you're going to hit it. When you're driving, just because you say you don't want the 9 to 5, but when that's all you're thinking about and you're thinking about how miserable you are in your job and this and that, guess what's going to happen? Your brain is a supercomputer. Your brain doesn't know the words.
Next deal. So that's how I've done like really all of my deals except the house hacks, which I've used VA loans for. So I've put 0 down for them.
Yeah.
But every other deal has been a bird deal. And then when you combine that with short-term rentals, the only difference is the second R, the rent strategy. Instead of putting a long-term tenant with a lease in there, you rent it as a short-term rental, which your cash flow is going to be like 3 to 5 times what your long-term rental cash flow would be.
Yeah.
And then the only difference is you have to get a commercial loan on that because, your conventional mortgage, your Freddie Mae, Fannie Mac lenders aren't going to lend on short-term rentals. So you got to get a commercial loan, which is going to be, normally 20 or 25 years amortized and probably a point or so higher. So most of my loans are like low to mid 4s with like 25-year AMs on my short-term rentals. So still pretty good terms.
This is life or death. Like, I have to find a deal by the end of the month. It has to be eight units plus whatever. Like, you set the criteria and then it's like all out commitment. Your brain will get creative to figure this out. Like, you have to treat it like in this life or death thing. Like, one of my favorite questions that a business mentor I have always says, he's like, we'll be talking about like whatever. Like, okay, well, yeah, we want to buy
another multifamily property by the end of the month or whatever the target is. And I'll say, well, yeah, okay, this is kind of what we would need to do. And then he'll say, well, what if we had to? Like, what if we had to do it in 2 weeks? Or what if we had to do it on $100 budget? Or what if we had to, like, I don't know why, but that question of what if we had to, like, how would that change our perspective and how we approach the problem?
Maybe you get $1,300 a month. And I mean, HOA is $240 over there. You know, if you got a loan on it, your loan's $800-900. I mean, there's not really any cash flow, but like right now I'm getting $200 a night. Like it's booked. Like one family, they actually came from Utah. They moved to Arizona and they hadn't even looked at homes. They're like, oh, we like stay for 25 days. And they ended up staying like 60 days. And yeah, so they finally found a home. But I mean, 60 times 200, that's 12 grand in 60 days.
Yeah.
Nobody knows Outwitting the Devil. It was written back in the Think and Grow Rich days, but was too controversial to print. They actually published it in like the late 2010s or early 2000s or whatever. And it is an interview between Napoleon Hill and the devil, which means essentially it's him talking to himself. And it talks about the concept of people being drifters and how that's truly the devil's worst doing, is not burning in hell and making you kill people, but it's that you don't live into your full potential. And I think that's a great book to kind of get you that.
Hire somebody that's been where you're trying to go. Hire someone that is an expert and or thought leader in your field that is compatible and you can build an emotional connection with, build trust with, and they can provide you logic to why investing with them as your coach is not an expense. The right coach is an investment, and to help you go from start line to the finish line and beyond. Great coaches make it so much easier and much more efficient, Justin, to get your job done. So if you're starting a business, hire